This is what we should wait for. We shouldn't just, oh, this person said this, even though there wasn't an exact quote around what Geoff Johns said.
Okay, I just want to say some words about that Ray Fisher tweet about Geoff Johns a couple days ago. And in case you haven't seen it, here's the tweet. And it reads, "During the LA reshoots for Justice League, Geoff Johns summoned me to his office to belittle and admonish my and my agents' attempts to take grievances up the proper chain of command. He then made a thinly veiled threat to my career. This behavior cannot continue. Accountability is greater than evidence." Now, technically, Ray Fisher is accusing Geoff Johns of a crime right here. Because if you have a serious grievance in your workplace and you're stopped from taking it to upper management, that is considered a crime. But the language Ray Fisher uses is so vague that this would never hold up anywhere. And you would actually need details in order for this statement to have that much weight. And that's the problem with Ray Fisher right now. He's been putting out this stuff about Joss Whedon, Geoff Johns, and I'm assuming the next one's going to be Jon Berg. But he's been putting out this stuff with little to no details, no real specifics. And you gotta wonder, what the end game is, what's the goal, how long is he gonna keep this up? When you watch his Instagram post, it seems like he's gonna keep this up for a long time, just saying very vague things about people on Twitter. And I'm really at a loss as to what the goal is. Because if Ray Fisher wanted to sue them, he would have already done that by now. What's he waiting for? If you have actual details, you have actual evidence, then sue him and get it over with. Because Geoff Johns, Joss Whedon, Jon Berg, these people aren't going to sue Ray Fisher. They're not even going to acknowledge Ray Fisher because that would probably give validity to what Ray Fisher's saying. So they're not going to really acknowledge what he's saying. Of course, Jon Berg's the only one that actually said anything, saying that Ray Fisher had a dispute over Booyah. Ray Fisher did not want to say the words Booyah in the Justice League reshoots, even though that's Cyborg's catchphrase. And the whole story that we know so far is that Joss Whedon took over for Zack Snyder. They reshot Justice League pretty much from the ground up. And while working on those reshoots, Joss Whedon was making a lot of jokes at Zack Snyder's expense. And also during the process of these reshoots, they were cutting out a lot of Cyborg scenes. They were cutting out a lot of Ray Fisher scenes. And if we go back to his tweet, he says him and his agent wanted to express their grievances. I would assume his grievance has something to do with all the reshoots they were doing and how he didn't want his part cut out of the movie. And if that's the grievance, then that's not a particularly good grievance because Ray Fisher is an actor. It's his job to do whatever scenes they tell him to do. He cannot like it, but he still has to do it. That's what he's getting paid to do. And when he says Geoff Johns made a thinly veiled threat at his career, that could mean anything. It literally could mean that Geoff Johns told Ray Fisher that if he continues to be a pain in the ass, then he's not going to get a lot of work anymore. That could have been the whole extent of the threat. And I've been looking at a bunch of different sides to the story, something that nobody else is really doing. Dave over there, Film Junkie, Chris Wan, they're not really entertaining any other sides to this narrative that's happening. But there are stories about Ray Fisher being a prima donna on set, being a drama queen, being hard to work with. Those stories do exist. And I gotta think there's some truth to it because Ray Fisher hasn't had a lot of work in the last 3 years. His last job was True Detective, and that was around the same time Justice League came out, and he's been pretty dry on the work ever since. And now he has an opportunity to get back in the limelight because the Snyder Cut's coming out. So you really have to question, why did Ray Fisher wait until the Snyder Cut was announced to air his dirty laundry? Why did he wait until the Snyder Cut was actually becoming mainstream? The guy hasn't worked in 3 years. His only big movie is Justice League. And now he wants to air all this dirty laundry that he says that he's been gathering for 2.5 years. And, if he spent the last 2.5 years gathering stories and this is the best he's got, then that should be a little off-putting to you. Because everything he said so far, with Joss Whedon, with Geoff Johns, none of this stuff is career-ending. People's lives should not be ruined because they were mean to somebody on set. Careers should not be ended because an actor didn't want to do his job. And he's mad that he was forced to say booyah. Because pretty much that's the whole story we know so far. Ray Fisher didn't want to do the reshoots. He didn't want to say booyah. He was forced to do them. He's mad about it. And were the producers and Joss Whedon, were they all pretty power hungry? Yeah, maybe, but maybe that's because they actually had all the power in this situation. It's all down to them to make the decisions. It's not down to Ray Fisher to make any decisions. It's down to the people in charge, and the people in charge at the time were Geoff Johns and John Berg, etc. And they made some bad decisions. It didn't work out. I don't think their career should be ruined over that. Especially when someone like Geoff Johns has had a clean record for 30 years, and the only bad stories that you hear about Geoff Johns are coming from this Justice League movie. And that's it. Josh Whedon, on the other hand, he has a history of being a dick on set. Still, not a good enough reason to ruin someone's career. And I really think this makes Ray Fisher look really bad. And you can already see people already thinking Ray Fisher's being a little bitch about this, because that's what he's coming off as. Like, I'll tell you a little story. When I was in 3rd grade, the teacher pissed me off somehow, and I whispered under my breath, "Oh, that fucking bitch." And there was a girl next to me, and she overheard my whisper, and she told the teacher immediately. That's essentially Ray Fisher right now. He's being a tattletale. He's not giving specifics. He's not giving actual evidence. No one's coming to back him up, and no one's going to want to work with him again after this. And I really don't like how he's weaponizing the Snyder Cut fandom to fight for him. I mean, if you go to these tweets and you look on all the replies, everybody says, "I stand with Ray Fisher," even though he really hasn't said anything or has given any strong evidence or specifics. It's not even clear whether or not Ray Fisher is going to sue these people or sue Warner Brothers. It's not clear if he's going to do any of that. He probably won't. And they're not going to sue Ray Fisher because why bother? And all this is happening at just a very peculiar time. You know, the Snyder Cut was just announced a few months ago, and now Ray Fisher wants to get some of that spotlight for himself. You have the DC fandom coming up in a week, and he says he's going to drop even more stuff. But way to overshadow DC Comics and DC fandom and the Snyder Cut by getting everyone focused on you, Ray Fisher. This is something that's going to hang over the whole event if he just keeps dropping this kind of stuff and getting everybody riled up. Because then all of a sudden, the Snyder Cut trailer is not the big news topic. It's whatever fucking Ray Fisher said. So, you know, a lot of things turning me off with this whole Ray Fisher thing. It's been 6 weeks since he posted that tweet about Josh Whedon. And in that time, he's provided absolutely nothing to back up any of his claims. He has no one supporting his claims. And the biggest crimes that he's laid against these people is that Josh Whedon was gross and unprofessional. They didn't want to give Ray Fisher's hairdresser a credit on the movie. And Geoff Johns made a thinly veiled threat at his career. Which, you know, could have happened. Or maybe Geoff Johns was giving Ray Fisher some good advice that Ray Fisher took as a thinly veiled threat, because that's easily what it could have been. And of course, no one else in this movement's going to speak facts at you. No one's going to actually tell you the truth about any of this. They're just going to say, "I stand with Ray Fisher," and they're not going to really use their critical thinking skills to actually think about what's happening right now and how Ray Fisher is just a guy who doesn't really care about having a career anymore, and nothing is going to change because Ray Fisher's doing this. And what is the end goal for Ray Fisher? Is he looking for money? Is that the end goal for him? What does he mean when he says we will win? What does he mean by that statement? Because we already won. The Snyder Cut's coming out. We fucking did that. The victory has happened already. The film that Geoff Johns didn't want to see the light of day is going to see the light of day. We beat Geoff Johns. Geoff Johns is not in a position of power anymore of DC films. We beat Geoff Johns. Like, what is there to really win anymore? The only thing I see Ray Fisher as a goal for him is to get these people's jobs now. Ray Fisher's essentially using the cancel culture mentality on these people. And he's weaponizing the Snyder Cut movement to fight his battle for him. And y'all are just falling for it like sheep, saying, "I stand with Ray Fisher," even though he's provided you with nothing. But, you know, continue to do what you're going to do. But I'm not really going to hop on this hate train until I hear the whole story, until I hear Geoff Johns' side of things, because we kind of heard what John Berg had to say, and if it is true that Ray Fisher is doing all this drama because he didn't want to say booyah, then that is really fucking sad. And right now, that's all we have to go off of. Ray Fisher didn't want to do the reshoots. He didn't want to say booyah. He's essentially didn't want to do his job. And we're supposed to feel bad for him because he was forced to do his job. That's essentially the situation right now. So, you know, I'll wait until actual evidence comes out, until somebody backs up Ray Fisher. Because until, that happens, until somebody actually comes out and says everything Ray Fisher's saying is true, I was there. And by somebody, I mean like one of the other cast members, somebody with some credibility. Until that happens, until I see what Geoff Johns has to say about these things, or what Josh Whedon has to say, I'm not going to stand with fucking anybody. And neither should you. Why does everybody want to be sheep so badly? It's kind of disturbing. Anyway, that's it for now. Hope everyone enjoyed the video. I'm going to look forward to DC Fandom. I'm probably going to make some prediction video before the event actually happens, because guess what? Geoff Johns is totally attending it. He has a couple different panels, not just one, and he's not going to cancel on all of them because of tweets Ray Fisher put out. Because I'm telling you guys, if you got rid of Geoff Johns from DC completely, it would only hurt the DC Comics brand. And that's what a lot of you people don't get, because you're not really big fans of the comics. DC has just laid off hundreds of employees, but they specifically held on to Geoff Johns. That should tell you the importance of his role in the company. But if Ray Fisher keeps at this stuff, if he makes it to a point where they have to let go of Geoff Johns, then that only hurts DC. But anyway, that's it for now. That's my piece. I'm moving on from this topic until something actually happens with it. But that's it for now. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
The shroud of the dark side has fallen. Begun. The Clone War has.
This is what we should wait for. We shouldn't just, oh, this person said this, even though there wasn't an exact quote around what Geoff Johns said. People on the DC side started hating on Geoff Johns because of some quotes that he had to say. And it kind of just made me go, are you serious? We're actually going to be hating on Geoff Johns.
Geoff Johns is a good man.